Welcome to EV Mythbreakers. There's not enough choice of different electric vehicles for me to be able to find what I need. Okay, I've heard that many times. I still hear that today, and I'm surprised to hear that. So, because I've been in this industry for a long time, I remember back in 2012, 2011, when we saw the first generation of electric vehicles. Do you remember how many electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles were on the market back then?
I want to say 5.
You're right, 5. So, remember Nissan Leaf, obviously.
Yeah, Chevy Volt.
Chevy Volt.
Yeah.
The Ford C-Max Energy.
Ford Focus.
And the Mitsubishi e-MiEV, which I affectionately call the Ford Model T of electric cars. But the thing is that back then there were very little choice. So here we are today at the Gatineau EV show. We're in 2024. How many electric cars can we get today? Well, if you take a look around, there are many, many different models, from the smaller electric vehicles like this one, like the Fiat 500e, the small electric car, to
all the way to the larger Kia EV9 that can fit a family of 7.
Or the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid, which is actually made in Canada, which can sit up to 8 people. So, for those who don't know this, right now there are 50 different electric and plug-in hybrid electric models that are available for the federal rebate, which means that there are approximately 70 different models of electric and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. So when people say that there's not enough choice, what do you say to them?
I say that is a myth that needs to be busted, and there's an electric vehicle for everyone in Canada. Just come out and find one.
Exactly. Welcome to EV Mythbreakers.
Canada's a big country, and electric vehicles don't offer enough range to get Canadians where they need to go. What do you think about that one, Danielle?
That's a funny one, because actually it's as if I knew a lot of people who in the morning wake up in Halifax and go to work with their car in Vancouver. It's ridiculous. The fact of the matter is that according to StatsCan, in 2019, 91% of Canadians drove 35 kilometers or less to get to work. And 50% of Canadians drove 10 kilometers or less to get to work. So when we're talking about EV range on a daily basis, it makes no sense at all.
And the average EV nowadays on the market offers over 450 kilometers of range on a single charge. That's more than enough to cover these commuting distances that we're talking about in Canada.
Yeah, and it keeps improving, because if you go back 10 years and now, the range basically has tripled in the past 10 years, and it will keep improving. And this one here is a perfect example of this. This is the Hyundai Ioniq 6, and it can offer up to 568 kilometers of range in not only the ideal conditions, I'm talking average range, meaning that in the summer with this, you can get from Montreal to New York without even having to stop.
There we go. EVs can help handle your daily commute to work. They can also handle those, once or twice a year road trips that you're going to take. And of course, charging infrastructure is also getting better and better to make sure that Canadians have a place to plug in when they need it.
Exactly. Welcome to EV Mythbreakers.
most prevalent myths about electric vehicles that we are hearing today is that sales are slowing. They're drying up. People are losing interest in these vehicles. And that is absolutely false, both globally and in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. And I looked at the data from StatsCan. According to StatsCan, in 2023, ZEV sales were at 10.8%, which is up 32% compared to 2022. So, because I like numbers, as you know, if ZEV sales were to slow down to 23% a year between 2023 and 2026, we would still surpass our 20% ZEV sales target. So, you're absolutely right. ZEV sales are not slowing down. Some people are even saying, as you said, drying up. There's no more interest. It's absolutely false.
It's not true. EV sales are breaking records year after year in Canada and around the world.
Exactly.
People want these cars.
Welcome to EV Mythbreakers. Another myth that we keep hearing is the fact that apparently a lot of people who buy electric cars go back to gas. What do you think?
That's absolutely not what the surveys show. I think, Electric Mobility Canada has done a survey looking at Canadians who have gone electric, and 90% end up staying with an EV and say that their next vehicle will be electric.
Yeah. And there was another survey done by CAA that was even higher. We're talking 97% of Canadians who were driving EVs or PHEVs were not going back to gas. They were staying with electric for their next vehicle. So this is absolutely a myth.
Yeah, I've seen similar stats in the US, and it's, it makes sense. Driving an EV is a better driving experience. So why would you go back to gas?
Once you go electric, you don't go back to smokers. Welcome to EV Mythbreakers.
Another myth that we often hear is that electric vehicles don't work for rural Canadians. This is because rural Canadians have longer daily driving distances and apparently less access to charging infrastructure. What do you think about that, Danielle?
Well, actually, I live in rural Canada, and to me this is really a myth, because what you need first and foremost is to have access to home charging. And when you live in rural Canada, wherever you are, it's very rare that people live in high tower buildings in small communities. They live in single unit homes, so they either have access to a driveway or a garage, and hopefully electricity.
That's right. Over 80% of EV charging actually happens at home. So having access to home charging is the number one most important thing, and many rural Canadians do. The other thing is, if charging is a problem for someone who lives in rural Canada, you can always buy a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle that comes with a backup gas tank in an emergency if you need it.
Exactly. So having a full battery electric vehicle living in rural Canada, I've seen that many times. Many of my friends live in rural Canada. They don't have any issue at all with electric vehicles. But as you said, a PHEV can be as good, if not better, for some conditions where you live far away from public charging when you are on the road. Another myth busted. Welcome to EV Mythbreakers. So another myth that I've been hearing for years is that EVs are not good for families. What do you have to say to that, Joanna?
Well, as a mother of 2 kids under 5, I would have to disagree. We went and bought a used Kona, and it's been great for our family. We can fit 2 car seats in there. It's got enough space for all of us. And if you don't go for a Kona, there's a ton of other options for families as well. Whether you're looking for a more spacious trunk or a 7 or 8 seater, there are a ton of cars on the market for families.
And worst comes to worst, even if you don't buy a 7 or an 8 seater, you can always put a roof rack on top of the vehicle for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks when you go on vacation. So for me, I think that this was a valuable argument years ago when there were very few options. But nowadays there are so many options, I don't think it's an argument anymore.
Absolutely. And let me just say, the air quality benefits of driving electric are great. I can look at the other kids in the schoolyard in the eye. And then my kids love how quiet the vehicle is, as well as the acceleration when we get a green light.
Yeah, another myth busted.